It's going to be a heavy hoop show here on a Monday Locked On Vols as Tennessee completes the season sweep of Vanderbilt, plus starting five versus crunch five and how John Fulkerson plays a key role in the latter, and a look ahead at what's to come for Tennessee basketball and the latest in Joe Lunardi's latest bracketology. All that and more here on a Monday Locked On Vols.
You are Locked On Vols, your daily podcast on the Tennessee Volunteers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. You are Locked On Vols, your daily podcast on the Tennessee Volunteers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
It is a Monday Locked On Vols, and today's episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline has got you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline, it is where the game starts. I'm your host, Eric Kane. Thanks so much for hanging out with me here today, and I'm pleased to begin a new week of Locked On Vols here. Plenty to get to, tons and tons of hoops content. Don't forget that Twitter Tuesday is coming up on tomorrow's show, so get me in your questions, your comments, your concerns, all that, plus a Kentucky preview with Lance Dahl of Locked On Cats, Wildcats, Kentucky, and that's a huge matchup. We'll talk a little bit about that today as well. But yeah, I'm Eric Kane. I do radio in Knoxville at 99.1 The Sports Animal. Also, your host here on Locked On Vols. I do cover recruiting, cover football for VolQuest.com. That is the rival side. And looking back at Saturday's win over Vanderbilt, it's unique because Tennessee was in control of the game pretty much from the get-go all game long. Had a lead of, I want to say, a best scoring run of 9 earlier in the first half, led by 16 earlier in the second half. But then Vanderbilt punched back, went on a 17-2 run when Tennessee's most active backcourt players were primarily sitting on the bench, and there was some foul trouble there, of course, but Tennessee able to weather the storm and pick up the 73-64 win over Vanderbilt, improving to 18-6 on the season, 9-3 in SEC play, while Vanderbilt falls to 13-11 and 5-7 in SEC play. That was a big win for Tennessee. You kind of see it on my face here. I know we're having some video issues. If you're watching on YouTube, I might have thrown up a graphic there to kind of block the video issues. So if you are, I do apologize there. But it was a huge win for Tennessee, and it really kind of sets that primer for what's to come. And we'll talk about that later on in the show. But, completing the sweep of Vanderbilt, Tennessee shoots 36% from the field in this one, 31% from three. Not the greatest number there, 7-22. But again, it's been worse at times this season. And Tennessee, not great at the free throw line, but a couple of players who were off their game on Saturday found a way to contribute in a big way by making the free throws. Tennessee 22 of 31, 71% from the line. But guys like Josiah Jordan-James, who's been on such an offensive tear the last 4 to 5 games, he couldn't buy a bucket the other night. I mean, Josiah, he was taking good shots. I mean, a couple of those were in and out, and he just couldn't buy a shot. He played 36 minutes in this game, finished 2 of 14 from the field, 1 of 7 from a long range. And it's unfortunate because, again, I thought they were pretty good looks, but he went 9 of 10 from the free throw line. He penetrated, he attacked the basketball, he didn't shoot only threes. Half of his shots were from long range, but, at points and times, that's all he was shooting, right? But he impacted the game, scored 14 points, 9 of those points coming, obviously, from the free throw line. He had an assist. He had 2 blocks. He had 10 rebounds, so he still finished with a double-double. And again, that's why I feel like for a guy like Josiah Jordan-James, I continue to beat the drum that he's an NBA player. Even on his not his best day at the office, he impacts the game in just a major way. I mean, again, Josiah Jordan-James goes 2 of 14, but finishes the game with a double-double. Not many people can really say that on a given night. But this was the Zakai Zeigler show. 16 points, finishing 5 of 10 from the field. He made a trio of three-pointers, 3 of 5 from the charity stripe. Finished with 5 assists as well. He had 6 steals in the matchup against Mississippi State early in the week. Only had 2 steals on Saturday, but played 28 minutes. Again, a real candidate for potentially SEC Sixth Man of the Year, right? That would be huge for Zakai Zeigler if that was able to kind of fall down. But for the second straight game, Tennessee goes with the starting five of Brandon Huntley, Hatfield, and Uros Plavsic in the front court with Chandler, Vescovy, and James as your 1, 2, 3 players. But again, just look at the numbers for those front court players. Brandon Huntley, Hatfield, 13 minutes. Uros Plavsic, 14 minutes. So it's more by committee over there. Zakai Zeigler comes in, I mentioned, played 28 minutes. Fulkerson played 25 minutes. Justin Powell played 14 minutes. Victor Bailey played about 9 minutes. Jemai Meshack came in, played 7 minutes. Jonas Adu got some action, especially in that first half again, and he played 4 minutes in this ball game. But Tennessee, it wasn't its best game. Certainly wasn't its best game, but was showing, kind of who it is, kind of beating his chest a little bit in front of that home crowd. Miles Stute played a really, really good game. I'm not the biggest fan of Miles Stute. I think he's kind of a punk, we'll say that. Remember, he was the one that kind of had that cheap little elbow there and then flopped and looked like a complete girl in Memphis when they played. But anyway, he had a really, really good game. Had 5 3-pointers, kept Vanderbilt in this ball game, finished with 17 points. Scottie Pippen Jr., potentially the SEC Player of the Year. He looked like it, 23 points, 7 of 10 from the free throw line. He gets an NBA whistle, I will say that. He's one of the nation's leaders in getting to that line and converting at the line. But certainly he does get an NBA whistle, and he has for quite some time. But Stute had a good game. Pippen Jr. had a good game. I thought Chapman getting back in that lineup, played a pretty good game for Vanderbilt, who finished shooting 40% from the field, 39% in the second half, and overall 70% from the line. Kind of like Tennessee, 37% from the charity stripe. But again, Tennessee had a biggest lead of 16 points in this game, biggest scoring run of 9 in that first half, held the lead 38 minutes and 21 seconds of this game, only played 15 seconds of this game without the lead. And, it wasn't a horrible day in terms of turning the basketball over for Tennessee. Only 9 turnovers for the Volunteers, 13 turnovers for Vanderbilt. Tennessee was able to score 14 points off those turnovers, scored 22 points in the paint, 17 points on second chance opportunities. And I thought for the Volunteers, who won the rebounding battle by 10 at 41-31, had 15 offensive rebounds compared to 4 offensive rebounds for Vanderbilt. I remember I was watching the game at a bar with some buddies, and I remember sitting there and saying, I don't have the stats pulled up in front of me, but I truly do believe that Tennessee is dominating the offensive boards. There's tons and tons of second chance opportunities, and that was the case. And so Tennessee, again, 15 offensive rebounds led to a number of second chance opportunities, and Tennessee was able to pull away there at the end, 73-64, finished the game on a nice little run there too. So the Volunteers get the season sweep over the in-state foe Vanderbilt. 73-64 was that final score. 18-6 again on the season now. 9-3 in SEC play, and Tennessee has now won 7 conference games in a row and won 7 of the last 8 ball games. A little bit of a run here for the Volunteers, and they're going to need it because, again, all good vibes as Kentucky comes into Thompson-Boling Arena on Tuesday night. Worth noting it, however, as well, Tennessee 13-0 on the season at home inside Thompson-Boling Arena. It's a really, really good stat. 13-0 on the season inside Thompson-Boling Arena. That is a really, really good note there for the Volunteers. All right, we'll get back into it. I want to talk about, I made a comment on my Saturday morning show that I host on The Sports Animal about John Fulkerson. Rubbed some people the wrong way. I'm going to go into greater detail on that here in segment number 2 when we discuss the starting 5 versus the Crunch 5. That's coming up here on Locked On Vols. Before we get into that, guys, it is a Bet Online. Bet Online. Football season might be over now, but basketball, it's still in full steam as both pro and college hoops continue on throughout their seasons. From all the latest odds, totals, player performance props to where the next fire coach is going to land, betonline.net. It's the number one spot for all your sports betting needs. BetOnline, it remains the best spot for all your sports scores, podcasts, and news this season. And it's not just basketball. BetOnline.net is now your source for hockey, for boxing, for UFC odds, right to the Olympic coverage and information. Head to the website today, use your mobile device, sign up for all the latest trends and all the action. BetOnline, it is where the game starts. All right, guys, welcome back. It's segment number 2 of a Monday show here on Locked On Vols, and I am your host, Eric Kane. I want to apologize again. Some real video issues here on the YouTube side. Restream, shout out, you're garbage sometimes. Just flat out garbage. So congrats to you for making the show here on a Monday, at least on the YouTube side. Complete and utter garbage. That's the thing about me. Hey, when I depend on technology and when that technology doesn't work and it is a paid technology, I'm going to trash them. So anybody listening from Restream, congrats. You guys sucked here for this show. Better get your crap in gear for tomorrow and the rest of the week. But we still have the audio channel. That's available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Audacity, wherever you guys get your podcasts. Thank you so much, as always, for making Locked On Vols your first listen and for subscribing on YouTube. Normally, Restream's fantastic. You get to see this ugly mug. They can't fix his face, but usually you do get to see this ugly mug up there, and it's not so glitchy and stuff. I'm not having to cover and stuff with graphics. So thank you for your support on YouTube as well. God, that was really mean, right? I mean, you can tell I just flipped that switch. I get really angry sometimes when stuff doesn't work, but it is what it is. That's life, right? Hey, Twitter Tuesday's coming up tomorrow. Get me in your questions, your comments, your concerns, all that. It's all at Twitter Tuesday. And really need you guys to participate in that because it's fun. It really is. You guys ask some great questions there. So at _Caner and at Locked On Vols. Okay, so John Fulkerson played a really good game the other day, and that's good to see. I think we all can agree we like John Fulkerson, right? He's such an easy guy to root for. He's a Tennessean. He is uncoordinated. He is lanky. He is a spaz. But he's a guy that overcame all that and was a real force scoring-wise on the offensive end in the SEC a couple seasons ago. He has fallen back down to earth, and you've seen glimpses of that at times and points in time since the back half of the 2019 season. Most notably this season, Arizona was a huge game for John Fulkerson. And outside of that Arizona game, I thought Saturday against Vanderbilt was probably his best game. Again, he played 25 minutes and 57 seconds off the bench. He was 5 of 8 shooting, 2 of 3 from the charity stripe. He finished with 6 rebounds, 12 total points. He had 3 assists. He had 1 steal, 2 blocks. He was plus 10 while on the court. That was John Fulkerson's line against Vanderbilt from Saturday. So I made the comment on the Saturday morning show at Saturday Sports Talk 99.1 The Sports Animal. I said, I think we should stop with the phrase, well, if Fulkerson can get back to form, if Fulkerson can give us a little bit of what he was giving us, back in that 2019 season, if John Fulkerson can take a step in back in the right direction and start scoring the way we thought he was going to score this season, I said, I think we should just stop saying that. Just give up on that, right? I think at this point in time, John Fulkerson is who John Fulkerson is. And I wasn't meaning that as a slight. I wasn't meaning that as a backhanded compliment or anything. I was just saying, hey, it's February now 14th, right? At the time, it was February 12th. John Fulkerson is who John Fulkerson is. I think this Tennessee basketball team is who this Tennessee basketball team is. We're in the latter stages of the season, right? That final stretch of the regular season. But that doesn't mean there's not value for John Fulkerson. And I made these comments leading up to the game, and then John Fulkerson, of course, goes off and had people text me saying, "Oh, you want to backtrack what you said earlier this morning?" Absolutely not. No, I don't, because again, that's not what I was saying. What I was saying was starting 5 versus crunch 5. Starting 5 now for the back-to-back games with the Olivier Cumwell injury. It's been Brandon Huntley, Hatfield, and Uros Plavsic at the 4 and the 5. And, of course, the same 1, 2, 3 with Kennedy Chandler, Santiago Vescovi, and Josiah Jordan-James. We thought that potentially it would be Uros and Fulke. We thought they'd go small ball, put Josiah at the 4, Fulke at the 5. There's a number of different options there for Rick Barnes. But for 2 games in a row, and, why try to fix what's not broken right now, I guess. It's been Brandon Huntley, Hatfield, and Uros Plavsic in the front court as starters. But as I've said many times, I feel like starters in basketball, starters in football, it's the most overrated thing in all of sports, right? Because it doesn't matter who starts the game. It matters who's out there to finish the game. We talked about it with Josh Ward. We talked about it with Logan Ward. Josh Ward and Logan Ward. It's funny. There's no relation there, by the way. It's about who finishes the game. And John Fulkerson, though he was playing really well in this one, came out and played 26 minutes in this game. But even before the Vanderbilt game, let's go back to the Mississippi State game. First game post Olivier Cumwell. Starting 5 versus crunch 5. Your starting 5. You had 2, 33, 1, 25, and 30. Those are jersey numbers, by the way. Your crunch 5. It was 25, 30, 1, 5, Zakai Zeigler. And what's Fulkerson? 10, and John Fulkerson. It was your 4 guard lineup with Josiah Jordan-James playing the 4 and John Fulkerson out there at the 5. That is your crunch time lineup. And that's a lineup that Tennessee has played a lot yet Saturday against Vanderbilt. That crunch time lineup was Olivier Cumwa at the 5, Josiah at the 4, and Fulkerson still on the bench. Now, of course, with Fulkerson playing well, he earned more minutes and got in that rotation a little bit, but that was your crunch 5. Now your crunch 5 is Fulkerson in there at the 5. And that's because he's an elder. He's a veteran, all right? He's been there. He's done that. He's played in more games than any other player in the SEC history. He's smart. You want him out there with, you don't necessarily want him with the ball in his hands, but if the ball is in his hands in crunch time, again, crunch 5, you have the belief that he's going to make the right decision. He'll get you rebounds. He plays solid defense. He's not a great defender. He's not a great rim protector, but he plays hard, and he's not awful, right? But John Fulkerson is in that crunch 5, and it makes a whole lot of sense. So there's still tremendous value for John Fulkerson on this basketball team moving forward. Even if Olivier Cumwa was here, he could still earn those minutes back into the lineup, potentially earn his way back into the starting lineup. Because again, Uros and BHH start. They get some run there in the first half. Of course, Uros plays a lot in the second half. Well, both of them play some in the second half. It's not like they start the game and then you don't hear from them again, but there's a big difference in starting 5 and then crunch 5. And the crunch 5 for Tennessee, without a doubt, is your 4-guard lineup, really your 3-guard lineup, your swing player, Josiah Jordan-James, and then Fulkerson. And that is the lineup that I expect to see a whole lot of. We saw it a lot against Mississippi State. We even saw it before Mississippi State, even with Olivier Cumwa here. But we saw it a ton at Mississippi State, saw it a ton against Vanderbilt, and I think you'll see it a ton moving forward, right? So that was in no way, shape, or form. Maybe you heard the show. It wasn't bad. It was just a couple people texting me or tweeting me and DMing me. It wasn't anything bad. But maybe you heard it. Maybe you took it the wrong way too. I just think that what John Fulkerson is right now is who he is. It's a guy that's going to play hard. It's going to score you anywhere from maybe 5 to 7 points on average. He'll get you 5 to 6 rebounds on average. He can play good enough defense. But he's a heady player. And he's a guy you want out there in crunch time. So, gone are the days of him averaging 20 points, in my opinion. I don't think he ever averaged 20 points. I think he averaged somewhere around 17 points during that back run of games there in 2019. I don't think you should expect that from John Fulkerson. Hell, he played his second best game of the season 2 days ago and finished with 12 points. Again, that was a fantastic effort. That would be awesome. I wouldn't expect that every single game moving forward. But you'll certainly take it. You'll take it, right? How about Zakai Zeigler, too? 16 points off 5 of 10 shooting. He continues to just show why it was the right decision for him to reclassify, leave high school early, come down to Tennessee, and, be who he's been the last little bit, right? So that's been fantastic to see. And again, even Josiah Jordan-James on a day where he couldn't pay to buy a bucket, he finishes with 14 points because he knocked down his freaking free throws. Earlier in the season, you couldn't say that. Well, when the three ball's not falling, when you just can't buy a bucket, you can at least tack the rim, get to the free throw line, knock down your free throws. Earlier in the season, Tennessee couldn't say that. Well, Josiah could say that on Saturday as well. One other interesting stat from the game on Saturday, then we'll move on to the bigger picture here. Justin Powell came off the bench, played 15 minutes. He was minus 16 in the ball game. Again, much like Josiah Jordan-James, couldn't buy a shot, could Powell. He was 0 of 6 from the field, 0 of 2 from 3. Couldn't buy a shot. He was minus 16 in the plus-minus for that basketball game. In case you're wondering, the others who were in the minuses, you had Powell leading the way at minus 16. You had Uros, who lives in the minuses, minus 9. And you had Victor Bailey Jr., who was minus 3 on the ball game. The complete polar opposite of that, as always, is Santiago Vescovi, 21 in the plus column. You had Fulkerson, who was plus 10. Josiah Jordan-James was plus 12. Fulkerson was plus 10. And then you had Jonas Adu, though he only played 4 minutes, at plus 7. Jemai Meshack played 7 minutes as well, was at plus 8. So again, starting 5, sure, it means something. You want to start the game out strong. Tennessee used that same starting 5 coming out in the second half. You want to get out on good runs. But starting 5, less than Crunch 5, which is the lineup Tennessee goes with the majority of the time. All right, we'll come back. Let's take a look at the rest of that schedule. Bracketology, where does Tennessee come in the latest Joe Lunardi bracketology, and a couple other more notes from around the SEC on a Saturday. But first, it is Built Bar. We're now in February. This is the time of the year that most of you guys might have started to slip back a little bit on those New Year's resolutions. But if you're sticking to the resolution to eat right, thanks to Built Bar, you can do it. All right, it's almost feels like it's not really a resolution because you're actually enjoying eating those. All right, have you tried the new Puffs? If you haven't, you're truly missing out. The Built Bar is one of the best tasting Built Bars out there. It's a protein-infused marshmallow, fluffy, marshmallowy, I already said that once, protein bar. It's a treat, and it's also covered in 100% real chocolate. Plus, it's a fan favorite as well. Incredible flavors, cinnamony, I can't even say it, cinnamony, churro, coconut, marshmallow, banana cream pie. So good. They're going to become your brand new favorite Built Bar, I promise you. And plus, it's always covered in 100% chocolate. Yes, 100% chocolate. Low in calorie, high in protein. Replace your candy bars with these. They're better. A typical candy bar can be anywhere from 200 to 300 calories. Built Bars aren't like that. The majority of them, 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, 4 net carbs, and 17 grams of protein. Where can you find these new Puff Bars and a whole lot more? Well, it's all at Built.com. Use that promo code LOCK15 and you're going to get 15% off your order. Promo code LOCK15 at 15% off. That is at Built.com. Welcome back into a Monday Locked On Vols. I am Eric Kane. Thanks so much for hanging out with me today. Don't forget Twitter Tuesday. Get in those questions, those comments, those concerns. We venture on in here to segment number 3, and I can tell the connectivity here with the read streams getting a whole lot better. If you're on YouTube, you probably see me now. So maybe that crap talking worked a little bit. Maybe I should try that again. All fun and games also, but nonetheless, hey, glad it's back online. Again, continued apologies for the technical issues on the YouTube side for the restream here today, but nothing's changed on the audio side. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, thanks so much for making Locked On Vols your first listen each and every day. Means so much to me. So going into it, let's take a bigger look at Tennessee basketball now moving forward, because as we've talked about, that last 6 stretch of games, which by the way we're in now officially, it is brutal. But first, Joe Lunardi. Going into the game on Saturday, Tennessee was at the 5 line. It was the 5th seed in the South region. Of course, these are all projections from Joe Lunardi, ESPN bracketologist. It was Tennessee heading into Saturday's game was a 5th seed in the South region, set in San Antonio, set to play North Texas. The winner of that game would take on the 4-13 winner, which was Houston taking on South Dakota State. Houston, who has now lost 2 straight, mind you. So that Tennessee was likely to play Houston in that projected matchup. But moving forward since, following the win over Vanderbilt on Saturday, and potentially because of that Houston second straight loss, Tennessee has moved up a spot to the top 4 seed. The top 4 seeds are, well, actually Houston's still there, but it's Houston. This is the 4 line. Houston, Wisconsin, Tennessee, and Villanova. Tennessee is at number 14 overall per Joe Lunardi's latest bracketology. Now, he just released a sneak peek here. He says the full bracket obviously is going to be out at ESPN.com on Tuesday, but Tennessee is the number 14 overall seed right now following the win over Vanderbilt on Saturday. Again, that 4 line, it's 16 Houston, 15 Wisconsin, 14 Tennessee, 13 Villanova. In case you're curious, the 3 line, 9 overall Providence, 10th Illinois, 11th Texas Tech, 12th UCLA. The 2 line, 8th overall Duke, 7 Purdue, 6 Baylor, 5 Kansas, and of course the top 4 overall seeds for that number 1 seed line, Gonzaga, or the top 4 overall teams, for that number 1 seed line, Gonzaga, Auburn, Arizona, and Kentucky. So Tennessee entered the day on the 5 line, leaves the day on the 4 line. So, of course, if you look at kind of how that plays out, that 4th seeds always square off against the 13th seed, and then you move on likely to play the 5th seed. So really it doesn't matter if you're 4th or 5th, 5th or 4th, you're going to end up playing each other in the second round of the tournament. So I wanted to give you guys updated there. In case you're wondering as well, this is falling after Saturday's games. The last 4 who were kind of on the bubble, the last 4 in: Oklahoma, Iowa State, Creighton, BYU. First 4 out: Memphis, Oregon, Michigan, San Diego State. The next four out, Florida, Rutgers, Virginia, and Kansas State. And the last four byes, Wake Forest, North Carolina, Loyola, Chicago, and San Francisco. You look at the teams from the conferences that are in for Joe Lunardi. 7 from the Big 10, 7 from the Big 12, 7 from the Big East, 6 from the SEC, 5 from the ACC. So again, that full bracket's going to be out at ESPN.com on Tuesday from Joe Lunardi, but Tennessee does move up following that win against Vanderbilt to the fourth seeded line. Let's take a look around the SEC from Saturday, shall we? No major surprises. South Carolina top Georgia. LSU got by Mississippi State. That was a pretty good game. Missouri took down Ole Miss. Tennessee's got a game coming up against Missouri, who were 4 games under 500 on the season, but you just truly never know what Missouri team that's going to be. Vanderbilt falls to Tennessee. Of course, we know that. Kentucky just dismantles Florida 78-57. We'll talk all about this tomorrow, trust me. And of course, we'll catch up with Lance Dahl of Locked On Kentucky, too. Oscar Tshiebwe, who's in consideration for not only SEC Player of the Year, along with Scottie Pippen and Molinar, but National Player of the Year. 27 points, 19 rebounds, and 2 assists for Oscar Tshiebwe in Kentucky's win over Florida on Saturday. So, he's going to be a challenge. So, Kentucky blew past Florida, and Auburn, who fell to Arkansas earlier in the week, bounced back and took down Texas A&M. Arkansas maybe living on a high a little bit, came down to earth, lost to Alabama 68 to 67. Again, 68-67 was that final. Alabama, which again, you just never know what you're going to get with Nate Oates' team. Alabama's a team that beat Gonzaga this year, beat Houston this year, but has fallen on tough times since. But that win against Arkansas was a good win because Arkansas arguably was playing better than really anyone in the country at this point in time. We look at the SEC standings as I pull them out on my phone right now. Excuse me, let me buy a little time here. Talk in a circle until it just loads right here for the SEC standings. Here we are. Tennessee continues to increase its lead to 3 games now from the 5th place Alabama Crimson Tide. But in the process, with that Arkansas loss and Tennessee's continue to win, it is now leapfrog Arkansas in the SEC standings. Right now, it's Auburn at the top of an 11-1 overall record. Kentucky, a game back at number 2 in the SEC with a 10-2 overall record in the SEC. Tennessee is 3rd, 2 games back of the leader, 9-3 in the SEC. And Arkansas is at 8-4 in the SEC, 3 games back of the leader, but 2 games up on Alabama, who is now at number 5 in the SEC. Remember, why is this crucial? Well, if you're a top 4 seed, you get to advance on in the SEC. Obviously, you don't have to play until Thursday, so that's huge. You get that double bye. So it's Auburn, Kentucky, Tennessee at 3 now. Arkansas, your top 4 seeds in the SEC. Alabama, LSU are tied there with 6-6 record inside the SEC. Then comes in Florida's in that grouping as well. Then comes in Mississippi State, South Carolina, Vanderbilt, Missouri, Texas A&M, Ole Miss, and Georgia. Tennessee plays 2 games with a couple of that bottom tier teams in the SEC remaining on the schedule, but it's sandwiched around some tough ones, okay? This last stretch of games for the University of Tennessee, goodness gracious. At home, 9 o'clock start time on Tuesday. We hate that here on this podcast. You guys know that, but it's a huge one. It is one that's going to be hype inside Thompson-Boling Arena. It's one that's is going to have a lot of hype around the nation, right? 9 o'clock start time. Kentucky, arguably the best team in the country, coming into Thompson-Boling Arena, where Tennessee is undefeated so far. Undefeated on the year. Tennessee trying to look for some revenge because they got ugly up there in Lexington last time, but that game is on Tuesday. Well, Saturday's game, you're at Fayetteville. You're at Arkansas taking on the Razorbacks, who did just lose, but playing arguably better than anybody in the country up until Saturday. So a tough week of games. After that, you travel to Missouri. Again, Missouri, not great on the season, 4-7 in conference play, well down there in the standings. But this is also a team that took down Alabama earlier this year. This is a team that has got some big wins. Who knows what you're going to get out of Conzo Martin's team, a team that can score 90 every now and then, but usually sits around 50-plus points. You got Missouri, then you're back home against Auburn that Saturday. You travel to Georgia, and then you host Arkansas to end the season. So again, the last 6 games, hosting Kentucky, on the road to Fayetteville to take on Arkansas, at Missouri, at home against Auburn, at Georgia, and then at home to host Arkansas. It is a stretch here to end the last little bit of the regular season for Tennessee, but Tennessee has kind of got itself some breathing room here. 7 straight wins in the SEC. Now it's number 3 in the conference, and a big test coming up against Arkansas and, of course, Kentucky this week. All right, been a fun show here on Locked On Vols this Monday edition. Again, sincere apologies on the video side. If you're watching on YouTube, continue to watch on YouTube. It's usually not even an issue, but today Restream was kind of stumbling all over itself. But we got about half the show up there where you got to see my mug. So apologies for the technical issues. But as always, you guys listening, this doesn't affect you. Continue to listen. Make Locked On Vols your first listen. Can't thank you enough. Coming up on tomorrow's show, again, we're going to preview the Tennessee-Kentucky matchup. We'll invite Lance Stahl in from Locked On Kentucky. He'll tell us all about Oscar Tshiebwe and the Kentucky Wildcats and a whole lot more of your Twitter Tuesday comments as well. @_Caner and @LockedOnVols. Get me in your questions, your comments, your concerns, all that and more here on Locked On Vols. Check out Locked On SEC. Make that your second listen. But as always, thank you for making Locked On Vols your first listen. Can't wait to do it again tomorrow, guys. Enjoy the rest of your Monday, everybody.